Hey everyone, it's Steven. Today I have the 2022 Porsche Cayenne S Coupe Platinum Edition. There's a lot of terms in that name, so I'm going to help dissect what that means. The Porsche Cayenne is Porsche's mid-size SUV, very popular car out there right now. And the S means it has a better engine than the base engine, so it's a little bit sportier, but not as sporty as something like the GTS or the Turbo. And then you've also got the Coupe, which is that new trend that's coming into a lot of SUVs, especially in the Volkswagen Auto group, where you have a sloped roofline in the back. For the Audi, they call it the Sportback. For the Volkswagen Atlas, they called it the Cross Sport. For this one, they're just calling it a Coupe, which is kind of weird given that it's an SUV, but I think it looks a lot better than the normal boxy look of most SUVs these days. Finally, you've got that Platinum Edition trim, which decks out the car with a few of satin platinum finishes. You've got satin platinum wheels and some lettering in the back of the car, as well as some blacked out sporty elements throughout the car. So the 2022 Porsche Cayenne S Coupe Platinum Edition, that's a little mouthful, MSRP is for $95,600. That is quite a lot of money, almost getting you to the six-figure mark. And as you know, with most Porsches, you have that bespoke model where you can kind of customize exactly what you want. This one, as tested, comes to a price of $110,000, which is a ton of money, especially because this competes with things like the Mercedes-AMG GLE. You can almost get one of those AMG GLE53s with those crazy V8s and stuff like that. This also competes with things like the BMW X6M, although I think this thing looks a lot better than that in my opinion. But yeah, so this competes with a whole host of other luxury vehicles, but definitely outprices these, which is kind of weird. But of course, Porsche has always been seen as a little bit higher class than those, especially when you see the interior fit and finish and the reliability of these cars. Porsche definitely is a step above those. So this one, the S trim, comes with a 2.9 liter V6, makes 434 horsepower and 405 pound-feet of torque. That gives you 0 to 60 times in about 4.7 seconds with launch control, which is crazy fast for a car that weighs well over 5,000 pounds. This engine is mated to an 8-speed automatic transmission with standard all-wheel drive across the entire lineup, so every Cayenne you get will always have all-wheel drive. This gives you fuel economy numbers about 16 city, 21 highway for a combined average of about 18 miles per gallon. Definitely not that great. This is kind of a gas guzzler, but that's what you would expect in these sporty mid-size SUV segments. The 2022 Porsche Cayenne has a whole host of different trims available. If you look through their website, it's actually kind of mind-boggling how many trims there are out there. There's Platinum Edition versions of all the different variants, like the S, the Base, the GTS, and you've also got the Coupe versions, you've got the Turbo GT, you've got the E-Hybrid. There are so many different trims out there, it can kind of be confusing. Most buyers will probably stick with either the Base, S, or GTS. The Turbo GT is the really cool new one that came out for the 2022 model year. That car is insane. And then you've also got the 2023 model year coming out soon, which is going to give this car actually a mild exterior and interior refresh. So if you guys want to wait a little bit, you can probably get a more interesting, newer, more modern Cayenne. There are some pieces of the interior that look like they could be updated in the 2023. We'll kind of get it in line with the new Taycan. For example, you have a fully digital gauge cluster. All right, let's talk through the exterior of this gorgeous Cayenne. So this one here has the moonlight blue metallic color, an $800 option. I think it is probably the most attractive Cayenne color. I will say, depending on the lighting, it doesn't always look the brightest. For example, here, you've kind of got a dark overcast day, so it's not going to look that nice, but in a bright sunlight, this can look really good. Problem is, though, it's hard to keep clean. So if you get this car, you have to make sure you can keep it clean. The front fascia of the Cayenne has remained relatively unchanged throughout the years. I think there was a light refresh in the 2020 model year, but aside from that, you've got that traditional boxy look. This one actually is less boxy than the Macan, which is kind of interesting because most people associate a larger SUV with a more boxy look, but the front you can actually see, I actually think it looks a little worse than the Macan in my opinion. I think it has a weird little, I don't know, the proportions seem a little strange to me. It definitely looks like a big mouth that's smiling at you from certain angles, although, you know, as cute as that is sometimes, I don't think that's really what you want to describe your six-figure car as, right? Aside from that, you've got traditional Porsche looks, right? You've got those gorgeous headlights. I love those. I used to think they look kind of weird and tacky, but I think over time, I mean, Porsche has kept this design the same for the last like 50 years, right? So clearly it's doing really well. You've got LED headlights, of course, as you would expect, daytime running lights, turn signals, everything like that. They look really, really good and sharp. Otherwise, the Platinum Edition does black out some of the grille elements here, but otherwise, you know, traditional front look, nothing too interesting. Going along the side profile of this car, you do have these interesting 21-inch Cayenne turbo wheels. So this is actually really cool. These wheels, I don't know, I don't think they look that great. If I got a Cayenne turbo, which is like $150,000, I would definitely want more interesting wheels than this. This one is a $600 option with the Platinum Edition S Coupe. So this one here is, you know, finished in satin platinum, as the name suggests. I don't think it looks that great, but you do have some interesting aluminum brushed brake calipers. They look okay in the silver two-tone color there. But aside from that, the side profile is also relatively uninteresting, except for when you get to the rear, right? You've got that rear spoiler in the back, and you've also got that sloped roofline. That looks really incredible in this car. I will note the Cayenne does look very different on the side profile than the Macan because you don't have that side blade. So I do like that Porsche has done some things to distinguish the SUVs because they do look very similar. From far away, it's honestly hard to tell the difference between them, but when you get closer, you would definitely never mistake this for a Macan. You've got the rear light bar in the back, which I love. That is always one of my favorite things about Porsches these days. The 911 looks awesome, the Taycan, and the Cayenne as well. But come on, look at this rear here. I think it looks fantastic. It looks like an Urus. I think that's my favorite part, is that this car looks like a baby Lamborghini Urus, which is so cool. Obviously much cheaper than the Lamborghini, but I just love the sloped roofline. It looks fantastic on this car. I actually think this is probably the best looking out of like the Atlas Cross Sport, the Q5 Sportback, things like that. Like, this car just looks so much better. Rear light bar, awesome. Cayenne S, it's in that satin platinum lettering, but I mean, I don't think it looks that great, but it's fine. I think a blacked out look would look really nice. The satin platinum is weird because you can't really tell that it's not blacked out until you get closer. It looks very similar from far away. And then the star of the show, I think as well, is going to be those quad exhaust tips. They look awesome and they sound awesome. Let's take a listen right here. Sounds pretty nice, right? Definitely not as nice as something like the GTS or the Turbo. For example, you don't really get those pops and crackles, but it does sound quite good. Going into the trunk here, this is also going to be a pretty nice part of this vehicle. You do have 22 cubic feet of cargo space with all the seats up, and you've got 54.3 cubic feet of cargo space when you fold down the back row. So a lot of space here. The Cayenne normally does have a bit more space than that, but the coupe version does cut into that a little bit, but I really don't think too many people are going to be missing the, you know, few cubic feet of cargo space. Looks like a pretty nice trunk. You do have a spare tire underneath, and you can raise and lower the ride height so you can kind of get groceries in a bit more easily. You actually can't lower the rear seats from the trunk, which is kind of annoying. You have to actually go into the second row to actually do that manually. All right, so let's go into the interior of this car, especially because it is starting to pour here, very unexpectedly. But you guys can kind of check out some of the ambient lighting since it's going to be pretty dark in this vehicle now. But going in, you can immediately see you've got that half digital gauge cluster, which is pretty cool. I think it's a really neat look. As you can see, you've got an analog tachometer, which is kind of crazy in a $110,000 vehicle, right? But Porsche does it, and I think it looks great. I love the look of it. I think a lot of people also really are big fans of it. I really think it's one of the best looking in the industry. On the right-hand side, you've got a few different things you can display here. I'll zoom in a bit so you can check that out. You've got tire pressure, drive distribution, G-force, sport chrono, where you can take lap times and things like that. The map, I think, looks incredible, really cool. But yeah, very configurable. You can show a few different things here. Unfortunately, the other side is not as configurable. So the other side here, you really can't do much with. You can show your adaptive cruise control, safety things, and you've got your odometer, things like that, and then navigation. So aside from that, you can't really display anything different. Kind of disappointing. I really wish you could change this one right here because I don't really care about those things specifically, but you know, it's a nice looking half digital gauge cluster. I think it looks really nice. Going into the other star of the show in the interior is going to be this 12.3 inch infotainment display. This is a touchscreen, and I can kind of show you guys when you scroll through, it is pretty fast. So I do definitely think that this competes well with other things like BMW, Audi, Mercedes, right? Like this does a good job. It is very fast and it's large. I actually think it's a little too large. I do really love the display of Apple CarPlay though. I think it looks phenomenal on this. Like, it takes up the entire screen. It looks huge. I love that. The maps is large. The song is large. Like, I think that looks really great. I think Porsche did a great job with that. This is running the new PCM 6.0. So PCM is Porsche Communication Management. That is the name of their infotainment system. And this is the new 6.0. I actually have heard that in the 2023 refresh, they are going to give it the even newer version of it. So it makes it a little even more modern, which is really cool. This is also the first year that they have Android Auto, as you can see here. First time, so pretty cool. It's been a long time coming, and Porsche's finally gotten to the point where they can support Android Auto. All right, so moving away from the screen and the tech, I kind of went right into that when I first got in this vehicle. The first thing I think most people will notice is this two-tone color. So you've got this $390 option, pretty cheap, right? But you get beige instead of your normal black seats. I definitely think this is great. I love the look of this beige. It's called Mojave beige, I believe, with the black plastic kind of clad around the vehicle. And I love that look with the moonlight blue metallic color on the outside. I think it looks phenomenal. Beige and that dark color on the outside, definitely a great combination. You also do have this aluminum mesh trim on the sides of the door panels and the trim kind of throughout the vehicle. I think it looks pretty good. One thing I don't really like is the look of the air vents. I think they look kind of weird and a little old-fashioned. But aside from that, the rest of the car looks great. I love these grab handles everywhere. It really makes you feel like you're in a sporty vehicle. And with the Platinum edition, you do get the nice sport seats. These are the 18 adaptive way sport seats, and you also get the Porsche crest on the headrest on every single seat. So all of the passenger seat, the driver's seat, and both of the seats in the rear. People will very quickly notice, though, that all of this stuff here, plastic, not leather. So Porsche makes you pay for everything. And if you've configured a Porsche, I would highly encourage you to go on the website and configure one, because it's super fun, although you will quickly realize how expensive they are. But you know, you have to pay for leather everywhere, right? Like this could be leather-fied, I guess, and then this could also be leather here, but it is all plastic. So it's just kind of weird to buy such an expensive vehicle and realize that everything is plastic. Even this, like, it looks like leather, it's just soft touch plastic. Plastic on the door panels, plastic here. It's kind of crazy. You do have some nice like buttons, right? Like these are not low quality buttons that you would find in other products. These feel good, they work well, and you know, they feel like you're in a luxury car, which is important when you're spending that much money on this vehicle, right? Coming here, you've got the, let me back up a little bit, but you've got the traditional Porsche steering wheel. Looks really good, pretty standard, pretty much what you'll get in most Porsche products these days. Of course, with this one, you don't have the skip track button. Again, probably my biggest gripe with all Porsche products, like just give me a normal skip track and, you know, previous track button, please. All I do is program the diamond button to this, but you can't go back. It's just the weirdest thing in the world. So you can program this to either skip track or previous track, but you can't obviously do both. So it's all you get. In some of the other cars with a different steering wheel, you actually have a skip track button, which is really nice. But there's still no previous track button. Super weird. Porsche does some strange things. But you do have the Sport Chrono thing here. This comes with the Platinum edition, so changes different things. Your drive modes are Sport, Sport Plus. It'll change your suspension. The car will go up and down. And you've got individual as well, and then back to normal. Honestly, with this Cayenne Coupe, I've actually been keeping it in normal most of the time because it's just such a plush ride. I'll talk about that more in the driving impressions part, but like, I love having such a comfortable, quiet ride. Sport is fun, and like you do get some more interesting like engine sounds, but overall it's still not going to be like that crazy, right? It's just the S. It's not the GTS with the V8. This is still the twin turbo V6, which to be fair still sounds a lot better than I would ever expect it to. Okay, let's go into the second row now. Obviously very important in a family hauler like this car. Immediately you can see that ambient lighting is gorgeous, and I didn't mention this in the front, but you've got these Bordeaux red leather seat belts. Super weird color choice in my opinion. Great visibility, and you know, just overall very comfortable ride. So you do have 4-zone climate control, which is awesome. So every single passenger can have their different climate, and you have heated seats for both of the rear passengers as well. One interesting thing that Porsche allows you to do actually is skip out on the middle seat here. So let me zoom out here. This seat can actually just be, you know, not there essentially. So it can just be plastic here with some cup holders and stuff like that. But you can basically have this more as an executive car where you only have 2 passengers in the back, but you can have the 2+1 option, and it's free. It's honestly surprising that Porsche gives it to you for free. But yeah, otherwise you've got this nice thing, cup holders here. This feels nice and it's leather. You still got that aluminum brush trim in the back. And yeah, I mean, the rear here is comfortable and you have so much space. Like, so let me show you what it looks like normally if I didn't have the seat all the way back, but you have tons of legroom, tons of headroom, and some people complain about the headroom because it's a coupe, right? It does cut into your headroom a little bit, but I mean, I still have so much headroom. I'm at 5'8". Even people 6 foot should feel okay sitting in the back here. I think it is still a really spacious vehicle, looks incredible, and being in the back, I mean, you can definitely tell you're in a luxury vehicle like this. All right, I hope you guys can still see this pretty clearly. I know it's pretty overcast and dark and it's pouring rain now, which is crazy. But wanted to tell you guys about how this car feels to drive. So obviously when it comes to Porsches, right, driving factor is going to be one of the most important parts of the vehicle. And I think with the Cayenne, Porsche, again, as expected, knocks it out of the park. If you've read any reviews about the Cayenne and Macan SUVs, they don't even feel like SUVs. These cars feel like sedans when you drive them. I will say though, the Cayenne definitely feels very different from the Macan. So I daily drive the Macan GTS, so that's going to be my biggest comparison point here. But the Cayenne, interestingly, uses the exact same engine as that vehicle, but it definitely feels heavier, right? The Cayenne is when you get to the point where you kind of feel like you're driving a truck, right? Like your seating position is higher, the steering wheel feels a little different, right? Just the steering response, the overall feel of the car is just larger. You don't feel like you can kind of toss it around, even though you really can. That's the kind of impressive part, is this Cayenne, you can really toss this car around. You can take turns pretty fast, and I mean, it sounds great. Let's do some acceleration here. Wow, that got me to redline. 6,500 RPMs, it's awesome. It sounds incredible. This car never ceases to make you smile when you're driving it. I think it's always so much fun. And I have to say, just looking in the camera right there, like these Bordeaux red seat belts, I like them. They're again, they're not my favorite choice, but I mean, they are more interesting, right? I think overall they pop. You know, maybe a black interior would have been better than the Mojave beige in this situation, but yeah. Overall, again, driving is so much fun in this vehicle. It really is probably the most fun you could have driving an SUV, especially a mid-size SUV. So one of my biggest comparison points to this vehicle is going to be the AMG GLE53 Coupe that I drove in Hawaii. So I'll link you guys the review here. That car was so much fun, and I really love the looks of that car too. So when it comes down to it, these cars are actually pretty comparable for me. The AMG GLE53 Coupe though was $90,000, about $20,000 cheaper than this vehicle. But I will say the thing is, like, this car just feels more luxurious on the inside based on the fit and finish. That's the difference. The Mercedes, I feel like they kind of wow you with certain things, like their ambient lighting looks really cool, the little fun light dance they do at the beginning. Like, Mercedes tries to kind of, I don't want to say it's gimmicky, because at the end of the day, the car is still, you know, the AMG GLE was such a fun car to drive, but it doesn't feel as engineered as Porsche does it, right? Porsche knows how good, like, they are essentially, and they're very confident in their ability to make a fun driving vehicle. But the thing is, you just have to pay for it, right? And it's just the brand name Porsche is always going to be more prestigious than Mercedes, even AMG. I don't know if you guys can hear this accurately given the rain kind of splashing down, but I mean, it's pouring rain and it's so quiet in this vehicle, right? That's one of the most impressive parts of this vehicle, is that it is so plush and comfortable as you're driving down the road. Using this as a daily driver, like, it's incredible, right? This is such a great family hauler, I think, because you have so much space in the back. You can have 4 adults in this vehicle. Would be super nice to road trip in this vehicle, right? Very comfortable, might not get the best fuel economy, but comfortable, quiet cruiser. You can have a conversation with your rear seat passengers without yelling, right? Like, you're going 80 on the freeway, you don't have to yell, you can just kind of talk with the people in the back. Sound system is the Bose sound system. I didn't mention that before, but it's okay. 14 speaker Bose sound system, you've got surround sound, things like that. It sounds fine. Better than what you would find in a cheaper car, but this is 6 figures. You'd probably expect something a little better at this price point, but it's fine. You can step up to the Burmeister. That one sounds incredible, but that one is like an extra $5,800 or something like that, so some people will question if it's actually worth it. I think the tech in this car is not going to be the highlight of this vehicle. Again, it's going to be how well this car is engineered. You've got the fun factor, you've got the quiet ride. It's more quiet than the AMG GLE, for sure. And again, the looks. I think the looks of this, the rear definitely beats other vehicles. The front, a little more questionable. I do love what Mercedes-AMG does with their front slats, but you know, it's everyone their own. Like, it's going to be a little different how you feel about the styling of this vehicle, but I think Porsche continues to do a great job styling their SUVs to make them look a little bit more interesting, stand out in the crowd, and still feel luxurious and modern. So overall, I mean, this car is a great I don't want to say great value, it's just a great car. Like, this car is so phenomenal and it does everything right, and if you have this in your budget, I don't think there's any other vehicle that will do what it does better, right? Like, this car handles great, you can take turns really fast, it's planted, it feels fun to drive, the engine note is great, the interior quality is great, super comfortable, quiet. The only con I can always think of with Porsches is how expensive they are, right? They're always going to be more expensive. That does make them a little bit of a higher tier than the other German rivals, but at the end of the day, some people just won't feel like it's worth it, right? You can get a fully decked out Mercedes-AMG GLE, like I keep saying, that car was incredible to drive, I love that car. You can get a really decked out BMW X6 M50i. You know, there are just so many other cars out there that do this really well, but at the end of the day, they're not Porsche. All right, so that pretty much sums up my thoughts on the 2022 Cayenne S Coupe. It's been a blast to drive. Thank you so much to Zimbrick Porsche in the Madison area for renting me all of these Porsches. It's been super fun. I have a ton of other reviews. You can check out my other reviews up here, and please subscribe down here. Leave me a comment. Let me know what you guys think about the Cayenne S Coupe. So again, thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you guys in the next video. Bye.